ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ। ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਲੈ ਕੇ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ USA ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਨਾ, ਵੀ ਟਰੱਕ ਡਰਾਈਵਰ ਲਈ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਆ। ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰੂਗੀ। ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਫਸਰ ਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਜਾਣੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੱਟਾ ਹੀ ਲਾ ਲੈਣਾ, ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੇਮ ਹੀ ਇਹੀ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਟਰੱਕ ਦੇ ਰਿਲੇਟਡ ਹੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ। ਮੈਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ 'ਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੂਗਾ। ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਡਿਟੇਲ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ 'ਚੋਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਉਹਦਾ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਾਲੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਵੀ ਬਣਾ ਲਾਂਗੇ। ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ 'ਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਲੰਬੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਵੀ 20-25 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਬਣੂਗੀ। ਅਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਜਾਣੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਫਸਰ ਨਾਲ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਲੈਵਲ 1 ਇੰਸਪੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਣੀ ਆ ਸਕੇਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਜਾਂ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵਾਲਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ, ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰਾ A to Z ਜਾਣੀ 100 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ 85% ਇਹ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਮੇਨ। ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਜਾਓ ਅੱਗੇ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖੋ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਿਓ। ਜੇ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਚੰਗੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਿਓ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੋ ਅਤੇ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦੱਸਿਓ, ਆਪਾਂ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਬਣਾ ਦਾਂਗੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਾਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦਾ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਚੱਕਰ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਿਰਫ ਇਕੱਲੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਘਬਰਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਤਾਂ ਸਭ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨੇ ਸਭ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਗੇਟ ਬੰਦ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹ 10 ਦਰਵਾਜ਼ੇ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਕੋਈ ਟੈਨਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ, ਆਪਣਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੋ, ਮਾੜਾ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਕਰੋ, ਚੰਗਾ ਕਰੋ, ਰੱਬ ਨੇ ਆਪੇ ਹੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਵਧੀਆ ਹੀ ਕਰਨਾ। ਆ ਜਾਓ, ਬਾਹਲੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਜਾਓ, ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਜੇ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਚੰਗੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ। ਆ ਜਾਓ ਹੁਣ ਅੱਗੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਗੋਰਾ ਉਹ ਅਫਸਰ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹੀ ਲੈਣਾ। ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਤੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ, ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੇਜ 'ਤੇ ਲਿਖ ਲਓ, ਚਾਹੇ ਰੱਟਾ ਲਾ ਲਓ। ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹੋ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਬਣਾਵਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦੱਸ ਦਿਓ ਵੀ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਵੀਡੀਓ, ਵੀ ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਪਾਊਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਣਾ ਦਾਂਗੇ ਨਾ, ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਵਾਟ ਯੂਅਰ ਨੇਮ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਨਾਮ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਗਿਵ ਮੀ ਯੂਅਰ ਲੌਗ ਬੁੱਕ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਲੌਗ ਬੁੱਕ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਕਰ ਲਾਂਗੇ। ਆ ਜਾਓ ਅੱਗੇ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨਾਲ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ।
Hi, I'm Officer Shelton. I'm going to do a level 1 inspection today. I'm going to have you open your door and I want to gather some documents from you. How about your registrations, your fuel permit, driver's license?
Okay, got them all out for you.
Okay, thank you. And how about you're running an ELD. I'm going to have you transfer that to the web service.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, once you get ready, I'll give you my safety code and then just send that to the output file.
All right, it's sending.
Okay, with that you're required to have some paper logs, blank paper logs. Okay, and the instruction sheet. Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to hand those back to you.
Great.
Okay, let me get your gross vehicle weight rating and your VIN number. Okay, before we begin the inspection, I've got your vehicle chalked. I'm going to have you turn your key to the on position. Let me check your ABS lights. And how much air pressure do you have?
120.
Okay. And then I'm going to have you release your brakes. I'm going to move to the front of the truck and I'm going to start with your lights first.
Okay.
Once I get done with your lights, I'm going to move counterclockwise around the truck. And then when I get to the back, I'll run through your lights again in the back and then proceed back up the right side of the truck.
All right.
Okay? Let me shut your door. Okay, driver, go ahead and turn your lights on. Okay, high beam. Okay, turn signal. 4-way flashers. Okay, windshield wipers, and how about your washers? Okay, and your city horn. Okay. On the left steering tire, we're looking at tread depth. Make sure it's properly inflated. There's no cuts along the sidewall, no bulges. On the wheel rim, any cracks between the wheel fasteners, the center hole Make sure all the wheel fasteners are secure and tight, and the barrier cap is on. Now I'm going to proceed down the left side of the truck. I'm going to check the left fuel tank to make sure it's not leaking and the cap is secure. I'm also checking for an annual inspection, which could be a decal, or the driver could also carry a hard copy of the inspection report. As I get to the back of the tractor and the front of the trailer, I'm going to look at the air lines, make sure there's no chafing and no air leaks. I'm also going to look at the reflective tape on the back of the tractor to make sure that it is in the proper place. At this point, I can also check the frame of the tractor, which I will get more in detail underneath the truck, and then also check what I can with the fuel tank. When I get to the drive axles, I'm going to check the tread, the sidewall, check for any bulges, any cuts. I'm going to check the inflation, make sure it's properly inflated. Check all the wheel fasteners, make sure they're tight. Make sure there's no cracks in the rim. Do the same thing for the inside tire. The third axle, I'll be checking the same thing. The tread, sidewall, the wheel fasteners. We're going to check the fifth wheel, the upper coupler on the trailer, and the lower fifth wheel. Make sure that it's properly seated, everything is secure, there's no cracks along the frame. While we're here, we can also get a glimpse of the airbags and the suspension. We're going to check the frame, make sure there's no cracks along the frame. We're going to look inside the tires to make sure that there's nothing lodged between the two tires. And I like to kick them just to make sure that they're properly inflated. Okay. At the front of the trailer, I'm going to check the clearance lights and the marker lights as I walk down the side of the trailer. I'm also looking at the upper rail and the lower rail. Make sure there's no damage along those rails and the sideboards of the trailer. When I get to the back of the tractor, I'm going to check the lights. Driver, turn signal. Four-way flashers. Hit your brake. Okay. And put it in reverse. Okay, good. When I get to the trailer, I'm checking the same thing on the tires, making sure the wheel fasteners are secure, the tires are inflated, the tread, make sure there's no leaks, make sure nothing's lodged in between the tires. And then I need to check the subframe of the trailer. So I'm making sure that it's securely fastened. The slider guides are in place. And I'm also checking the spring hanger. And then I'm going to move to the back of the trailer. When I get to the back of the trailer, I'm going to check the lights on the back of the trailer and the reflective tape. I'm also going to check the reflective tape on the side of the trailer. So on the back of the trailer, you will have the reflective tape inverted L's up at the top on each corner. Across the trailer, you will have reflective tape, and on the rear impact guard. On the lights, driver, your left turn signal. Okay, and hit your brake. Okay, if the trailer was loaded, I would have the driver step out and we would open up the trailer doors to check load securement. But since the trailer is empty, we're not going to do that part on this inspection. I'm also going to make note of the trailer plate number to check that against the registration and the VIN number, and then move to the right side. As I'm coming around the right side of the trailer, I'm going to check the lighting requirements, the reflective tape, the tires, the wheels, the rims, the wheel fasteners, the sliding subframe. Make sure there's no damage on the upper and lower rail of the trailer. And I'm going to do the same thing on these axles. Check the tires, the fifth wheel, the upper coupler, the rims, wheel fasteners. Once I get done with the drive axles, I'm going to make sure that he's got a fuel cap on his fuel tank, check for any leaks. And once I get to the right steering tire, I'm going to check the condition of the tire and the rim and the fasteners. And then we're ready to go under the hood of the truck. I'm going to have you step down and raise your hood for me.
Oh, Lord of mercy. There we go. Okay.
Okay. Driver, rock your steering. I'm looking for any movement in the output shaft. I'm also checking the ball and socket joints for the drag link, and we'll check the tie rod in when we get underneath. Okay, that's good. Make sure the steering gearbox is secure, the steering column, and I'm also going to mark the brake chamber to get the push rod travel. I'm going to mark the push rod so I can get the push rod travel. I'm going to measure the brake chamber to see what size it is. And it's a size 24. I'm also going to check the brake line, make sure that there is no chafing and it's not leaking any air. I'm going to look at the spring hanger and the U-bolts, and I will check those when I get underneath also. And check the frame of the truck. Sir, I've got your steering brakes marked. I'm going to go underneath the truck and I'm going to mark the rest of your brakes. When I get to the back, I'm going to tell you to apply your foot brake. Hold your foot brake down until I come back up, and I will tell you when to release it, okay? Once underneath the vehicle, I check the axle and I check the U-bolts to make sure they're secure. Also take a second look at the spring. Check all the braking components, the brake pad. I'm going to have the driver rock the steering again so I can check the tie rod end. Driver, rock your steering. Just a little harder. Okay. The brake lining and the drum, the spider casting and the return springs all look good. The inner wheel seal, there's no leakage in the inner wheel seal. I'm going to also look at the inside condition of the tires. So after I've completed the inspection of the suspension, the axle, I've looked over the braking components of the steering, the tie rod end. I'm going to work my way back. I'm going to check the air tanks, make sure that they're secure, listen for any air leaks. I'm also going to check the exhaust for any exhaust leaks. Make sure the exhaust pipe is secure. Check the fuel tank, make sure there's no fuel leaking. I'm also looking at the frame of the tractor as I'm working my way back and the cross members. Once I get to the drive shaft, I need to check the carrier bearing, make sure it's secure, the bolts are secure, the universal joint, the yoke ends. As I go through here, I'm just going to grab it and push, make sure that it's secure. Once I've inspected the driveline drive shaft, I'll move to the second axle. From here, I'm going to check each brake chamber to make sure it's secure. I'm going to take note of the size and type of brake chamber. I will mark each push rod. I'm also going to check the spring hangers, the springs, the U-bolts, make sure they're all secure. I'm going to be listening for any air leaks from the air lines and also the airbags. I'll be checking the brake lining. In between the axles, I will check the driveline drive shaft here for the universal joints and the yoke ends. Once I get to the third axle, I'll check the brake chambers, make sure they're secure, check for any air lines that are rubbing or chafing. Also continue to listen for any air leaks. I'll mark each push rod. I will check the U-bolts, make sure they're secure, check my springs, my airbags. I'm going to check my brake lining and my brake drum. As I continue to the trailer tandems, I'm going to look at the air lines that go back to the trailer, listen for any leaks. Once I get to the fourth axle, I'm going to check each brake chamber, make sure it's secure. I'm going to mark each push rod. Check the brake lining and the drum, spider casting and the return springs. All look good. The inner wheel seal, there's no leakage in the inner wheel seal. I'm going to also look at the inside condition of the tires. The air reservoir, I'm going to make sure it's secure. Continue to look at all the air lines for any chafing. Once I get to the fifth axle, I'm going to check the brake chambers, all the braking components. Mark the push rod. I'm also going to check the frame, the suspension, the inside tires. After completing the components underneath the truck and the trailer, and we've marked all the push rods, I'm going to have the driver apply his brake. Once he applies the brake, I'm going to measure the push rod travel. Driver, apply your brake. Release. If there's too much push rod travel that's allowed, then we will record those as violations. We'll compare that to our out of service book to see if the truck and the trailer would be out of service. Driver, I want to have you step out and we're going to check your tractor protection valve. Your trailer brakes are released, so I'm going to have you disconnect your service line and your emergency line.
Does it matter in which order?
No, just watch your emergency line because there's going to be pressure. Yep. Once he pops off his emergency line, we should hear his trailer brake set up. Okay, you can just lay those down. I'm going to have you open up your door and we should see your red valve pop out.
I think it's going to pop. There we go.
The red valve has popped out. I'm going to have you go back up into your truck and tell me how much air pressure you have. The valve should pop out at or above 20 psi.
Yeah, we have 40.
Okay. I want to have you apply your foot brake. When he applies his foot brake, there should be no air escaping out of his service or emergency glad hand. Okay, you can release. Driver, I need to check your low air warning. What I'm going to have you do is pump your brake down until your low air warning comes on.
I got the air hose.
It'll still come on. Okay. Okay, your low air warning is on. Okay, you can turn your key off. Driver, I want to have you start your truck and I'm going to check your steering wheel lash.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to find a point on the steering wheel. I'm going to turn it. So when I see this tire starts to turn, I'm going to take a mark. Once I see that, I'm going to take another mark on the steering wheel. I'm going to measure that distance, and I'm also going to measure the diameter of the steering wheel. I'm going to look in the federal regulation book to see for this diameter steering wheel how much play he's allowed to have to see if he's in violation or not. The driver, I want to check your fire extinguisher, make sure it's secured and it's fully charged, and your triangles, and they're located behind your seat. It's a full box and there's 3 triangles. Our last step is going to be to check the fifth wheel. What I'm going to have the driver do is to just ease the truck forward and ease it back, and I'm going to check for any play between the upper and lower coupler. Okay, driver, ease it forward. Okay, that's good. Now just ease it back. That's good, right there. You go ahead and shut it off. Once we completed the inspection on the truck, we're going to document the violations that was found during the inspection process. We're also going to check the driver's license, the status of his medical card, his registrations, make sure he's current on his UCR, and check his E-rods. I just need to write up the inspection report, and once I get done with the inspection report, I'll get you on your way down the road. The good news is there wasn't any major violations found, so I'm going to issue you a CVSA decal, one for the truck and one for the trailer. They will be good for the rest of this month and the next 2 months. Give me just a few minutes so I can type up this inspection report and we will be done. Here's your paperwork back. I've completed the inspection. I just need your signature at the bottom. Is all you're signing is that you're getting a copy of this. There was no violations found, so the inspection report does not need to be returned. Okay, I'll give you your copy. Okay, this is your copy. Just turn this into your company and it goes in their maintenance records.
All right, great.
Okay.